Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Dr. Liana Lianoff. I'm the founder and president of the Global Positive Health Institute, and welcome to this series on meaning, purpose, spirituality, and lifestyle medicine and health and well-being. And I'm delighted to have with us today Dr. David Katz, a longtime colleague, a past president of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, chief medical officer of Tangelo, founder of Diet ID, the True Health Initiative, and the Yale Griffin Prevention Research Center. All a mouthful, all to say he's a colleague and friend extraordinaire. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Liana. Great to be with you.
Uh, Excited to dive into this topic with you and hear your responses. And I'd love to start with the core, which is what is your core life purpose? What drives you?
It's actually changed. As a young person, I really believed in my ability to make a difference in the world, and it drove me. I felt I can, and therefore I must. And so my purpose was translating my will into real world changes and the things I cared about, adding years to life, adding life to years. It's become much more personal. It's much more focused on the relationships that matter most to me now, my wife, my children, the people in my intimate circle, because I know how much they matter to me and how much I matter to them. I know I can exert an influence there. And as you get older, your convictions about your ability to make a difference in the world at large change. So I still try to make a big difference in the big world, but my purpose day to day derives from love in my little small patch of the world.
Interesting that you should say love, that this theme has come up with others that we've chatted with. Very much relate to that. Can you dig a little deeper in terms of how that translates into the kinds of activities that you find meaningful in your life?
I think you want to see the best version of yourself reflected back in the eyes of people that you love and respect and want to please. And so trying to be perceived as the best version of yourself basically means trying harder to be a better person, a better friend, a better support, a better parent, a better spouse. And then the reward is simply seeing the appreciation of that. And then that's motivation to try harder again. And of course, none of us is perfect, and we fail to clear the bar as often as not. Uh, but it's purposeful. It's purposeful to try and be the kindest, most generous, most understanding, most supportive version of yourself. It's a challenge every day. Every day there are irritants that come between you and the best version of yourself. And every day there's the goad of the people you love, whose admiration you most crave to be the best version of yourself. I joke, included on my short list of entities I love most are my dogs. And I joke that I strive to be the person my dogs think I am. Because they're loved. They don't begrudge anything. They just love you. But I think the way they love me, I mean,
Amazing.
if I could just deserve that love every day, I'd be fired on all cylinders. So I'm thinking about the greater challenges of Homo sapien interaction and really trying to deserve the respect and the love from my wife and my kids and my parents. But yeah, I mean, in some ways, my purpose is striving to be the person my dogs think I am.
I love that. And it's bottom line, it's relationships, and
Yeah.
connection that adds eudaimonia, meaning to our lives, and can be the crux of how we can make the best of the lives that we live. Well put. And then related to that, for many people, their sense of spirituality, religion, somehow links in with their sense of meaning and purpose. How is that for you?
Well, in some ways, I would say I'm outside of the club altogether. I'm a scientist to my core, an analytical thinker, and so almost everything in the world of spirit is substantially unknown, right? It's hope, it's belief, it's perspective, and I call spirits and God and all of that just stuff I don't know. I mean, there's sort of how far science can take us in understanding the world around us. And then I joke with my son, who's an engineer, it's turtles all the way down, right? No matter how many questions you answer, you say,
Yes,
but what about what's under that? I mean,
yes,
for example, if you get down to the level of subatomic particles, the tiniest possible parts of the tiniest possible parts of things, you then ask the question, yeah, but what are they made of? What's the stuff that makes up an electron? And then you just shrug your shoulders and say turtles all the way down. So,
yes.
at some level, that's spiritual. I mean, it's an appreciation for the profound simplicity and complexity of it all. I mean, here we are. And if you think of that, the natural state of the world, this unbelievable choreography of interactions among flora and fauna. I mean, it's beautiful. It's dazzling. It's staggering. And then this tiny planet in a vast cosmic sea, and there's so much that we don't understand. So in some sense, it's spiritual science, I guess. It's, seeing how far genuine understanding can take us and realizing the vast expanse of unknown beyond that, and just saying, wow. And I have a reverence for the simple harmoniousness of it all. I have a reverence for the staggering, overwhelming complexity of it all. I have a reverence for the natural world in general. And if that's spirituality, then I'm spiritual. If that's not spirituality, then I'm outside the club. But I don't find support or comfort in any given organized religion. And I use the term club, and that's the problem for me. Religion becomes a club. And like all clubs, they tend to elevate their exclusivity. So you're a member or you're not a member. You're us or you're them. And that part of the structure of religion has never worked for me. I've never felt that I'm different from, or certainly better than, or special relative to anybody else because I happen to be born into a particular religion or choose a particular religion. And it's not coincidence that people born into any given religion are most likely to practice that religion, right? I mean, you could claim it's something you discovered, but a shocking coincidence, what a high percentage of the time it's the religion you were born into becomes yours. And the mutual exclusivities of that bother me. So if I'm at all spiritual, it's a reverence for the wonders of the natural world, the world writ large. We're talking about the cosmic world, the
Yes.
universal world, but not in an exclusive way, not in a way that's at all about us and them. I think we're all us, and we're all in this together. We are a tiny part of a tiny part of a tiny part of a vast, wonderful, wondrous, amazing reality that we've only begun to understand.
Well said, David. And so that reverence for this vast, amazing, difficult to understand and comprehend and embrace universe is a part of our, yeah, I would call it a spirituality, part of our sense of meaning and purpose. So how does that, along with, of course, the more concrete connection with the important human beings in your life that you were mentioning earlier, how does all that translate to your personal well-being?
I don't know if this is the answer you'd like me to give, Liana, but in some ways, some of it translates to my personal harm because I think, for example, biodiversity is a wonder. It's a treasure, and we're squandering it. I think the natural state of this planet is a wonder, and we're abusing it. So, in some ways, my spirituality, as it were, is sort of on the ropes because I revere the trees, and I revere the creatures that make their living in ways we couldn't do. Every time I go hiking and I see the footprints in the woods and think, these sometimes little creatures, I mean, the salamanders that come out from under rocks after the rain, these little soft, squishy things, how do they do it? How do they live? I couldn't live naked out here, and they do, and they make it through the winter, and they're back the next. How the heck do they do it? I mean, I love the innocence. I love how they make their living in these amazing ways, and all of that is beleaguered. So it's very challenging. So in some ways, I buttress the one with the other, as more of what I love about the world at large is assaulted by us, the more I turn to the small group of people who comfort me and who become my sanctuary. And I feel some regret and reluctance about that. I don't want to turn away from the world. I want to continue to try to exert a positive influence to the best of my ability. But I appreciate at this stage of my career and this stage of my life that my ability to exert an influence is very, very small, except for people who love me. I can influence them a lot, and they influence me a lot. My ability to influence these other things I care about, not so much.
Yeah.
So in some ways, I turn to the one to soften the blow of the other. I remain hopeful that we will see the light and be better stewards of the treasures that we've been bequeathed. And in some sense, I suppose I become more spiritual in that I look to the distant stars and I look to the distant future for comfort, because I realize we may put ourselves out of business, but the planet will recover, and there'll be some new suite of biodiversity in the distant future that will have no memory of our abuses in the distant past. That's kind of a cold form of comfort, but it's some comfort just the same. The planet ultimately is resilient. We're really not threatening the planet. We're threatening the planet's hospitability for creatures like us. I'm hoping we'll stop doing that, because I would like to see the magnificent current suite of biodiversity and our own species thrive. But I turn to the intimate to comfort me when what we're doing at the larger scale of the world is a source of distress.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So as we're looking into the future and even the current lay of the land, it can be scary, unknowable, and those close relationships, and even maybe not close relationships, but connecting with humankind as we're all in the boat together, as we were saying earlier, is a source of comfort and a source of well-being. And in fact, the science shows very clearly that our social connections are the heart of our well-being, and so you're living that and expressing.
I, I'm living that, and I would, and obviously fellow humans are the centerpiece there, but I would extend beyond that. So as you know, I have dogs, and I love them.
Yes.
I really love them. And I have horses, and I love them. And the relationships are so different. Dogs in some ways are like, the best, kindest, happiest human who loves you the most. So in some ways they're very easy, but they have different needs than people. And so to be where they are takes you into a different place, and a simpler place. Horses are very different. They're intelligent, they're interactive, you have to earn their trust and make them comfortable, but because they're prey animals, it's a very different set of interactions and relationships. And what I love about those relationships is the sweet simplicity of them. I've long argued, Liana, that the human brain is exactly the wrong size. If it were smaller, we could be sweet and innocent and simple like dogs, and the world
Yes.
would be a better place. If it were bigger, we might be better at fixing problems than creating them. It's
Yes.
stuck in the middle where we're capable of, unending mischief and not able to fix any of it.
Yes.
And I'm sort of joking, but sort of not.
Yeah.
And these interactions with our fellow creatures, other species, take us into that place of greater simplicity, of transparency, right? There's no hidden agenda with a dog or a horse. I mean, it's just what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
There's a beauty there. So my life is enriched first and foremost by the people I love and the people who love me. But honestly, my life is much enriched by my frequent interactions with other creatures too, my dogs and my horses in particular.
Yeah, so it's connection at many levels, human connection, connection with animals' connection with broader nature.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And so all of these topics, how we see our life purpose, our day-to-day meaningful activities, our sense of spirituality or religion for many people is an important element of our overall, as we were saying, well-being and a comprehensive, healthy lifestyle. And so that is why the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, the Global Positive Health Institute, is interested in how health professionals, how healthcare systems that traditionally have not used these elements, incorporated these elements in working with patients, how we can do that. As particularly we're interested in stepping back and offering a much more holistic form of medicine. And so how do we do that? How do we integrate these areas into day-to-day practical ways in healthcare and medicine?
But honestly, you know more about that than I do. So I won't pretend to be an expert when I'm talking to the expert. But what I will say is I think there's a natural integration between the primacy of purpose and connection and the motivation for making challenging changes in your life. If you're not living a healthy lifestyle, change is always hard. Even if ultimately it becomes natural and normal and habitual and easy, getting there from here is always hard. So one of the tools we all recognize and respect in behavior change is motivational interviewing, which is, what do you care about and what's the reason to make a change? And there's a tool in motivational interviewing called a decision balance, which you can think of as a simple 2x2 table: change, don't change, pros, cons, right? There are pros and cons to staying the way things are. There are pros and cons to making a given change. And I think if you are moving toward a greater sense of purpose, if you are moving toward a greater spiritual contentment, whatever that means to you, it will speed the journey. I mean, whatever the other components of lifestyle change that are in the prescription for you personally might be, getting there from here will be much aided and facilitated by having a strong motivation to take the trip. And I think this is a critical component of that. And our friend Dan Buettner at the Blue Zones would argue that ikigai, the sense of purpose you wake up with every day, is a critical element in why Blue Zonians are Blue Zonians, why people live long and prosper with vitality. They wake daily into a sense of purpose. And again, that may be very spiritual in some cases and less obviously spiritual maybe in cases like mine. But if we just think about putting up the big tent and saying, anything that connects you to purpose in the world is a spiritual connection, right? It's not a physical connection, so it's a spiritual connection. That spiritual connection, awakening that, empowers you with motivation to do other things that may be initially a challenge, but ultimately incredibly rewarding. Healthy people have more fun. The value proposition of lifestyle medicine is a better life, but you've got to climb the hill so you can get to the expansive view, on the other side and hear the hallelujah chorus. And getting over that hill requires motivation. I think this is a key ingredient in that motivation.
Yeah. Yeah, wonderful. Well said. And certainly the core of lifestyle medicine and much of healthcare is nudging behavior. And we can do that through that core purpose, an individual's core purpose. I love that. So as we close this brief discussion, any other final thoughts on these elements of purpose, meaning, spirituality in our lives and our well-being and in healthcare?
Yeah, one closing thought. I want to thank you for what you do, because you make all of us more aware of this neglected area, appreciate how important it is, recognize our responsibility to address it when we interact with others, and to elevate its place among the critical pillars of lifestyle medicine. Personally, I appreciate it very much. I think the field appreciates very much. So thank you.
Thank you, David. So thank you for joining us, Dr. David Katz, and thank you to our listeners for joining this Meaning, Purpose, Spirituality series by the Global Positive Health Institute. I hope you'll join us for another one of these brief podcasts on this topic and many other related topics. And in the meantime, be safe, be well, and until next time, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.